Hey folks, I'm Zoe Maya. Welcome back to Haven's Kitchen. Today we're making an herby chimichurri breakfast pizza. We love this recipe because it's a great thing to make after a night out. Maybe you're hosting some friends. You can buy a pre-made pizza dough, no judgment there, super, super easy. Throw it together, crispy, crispy mushrooms, fresh mozzarella, and our herby chimichurri just kind of brings it all together. If you enjoyed this recipe, please subscribe to check out all of our future videos. All right, let's cook. We're gonna start by greasing a baking dish. The reason we're using a deep baking dish today is because we're gonna crack eggs into this and we wanna make sure that there's no overflow as those eggs cook in the oven. So the first thing we wanna do is get this nice and oiled up so that we get really, really crispy edges. And what happens in the oven is that the olive oil almost like half fries, half bakes the dough. So you get this like spongy olive oil, almost like focaccia texture from it. You're really gonna love it. And again, after a night out, like there's nothing better than like a little bit of oily, like juicy dough to just soak up all of the great memories from the night before. So I'm gonna generously oil our deep dish pan, just drizzle, drizzle, drizzle. And then I like to actually oil my hands a little bit. So I'm gonna use my hands to get oil around the edges, and then that's gonna help me also as I stretch my dough. And I'm doing this motion because I'm gonna stretch the dough over my fingers as opposed to pulling it apart, because I don't wanna tear or shred the dough. I just wanna lightly stretch it. So I'll take my hand and just give this a nice even oil. It's okay if it pools at the bottom because that pizza dough is just gonna soak all that delicious olive oil up. Again, pre-made dough, super, super easy. You wanna make sure to pull it and temper it. And what I mean by that is you don't want ice cold dough straight from the fridge. It's gonna be really hard to stretch. You want something a little bit more flexible here. So I'm gonna start by just pushing from the middle out and twist and turn as I go. We'll eventually end up with a square shape, but it's okay if it's round right now. And you can see I'm pushing from underneath and just stretching that dough nice and evenly, even pressure. It's kind of therapeutic actually. And turn. So if as you're stretching, the dough feels like it's getting a little sticky, just rub some oil on your hands and that'll just help make sure that the dough stretches again evenly. And now that it's getting a little bit more open, what you can do is actually just use gravity to help you. So I'm just turning and stretching and turning and stretching. This is an important step only because, again, I don't want to tear that dough. Anything that I tear is actually going to try to shrink back, and you want to keep a nice even stretch for your dough here, super, super smooth. Once you feel like you're getting close to the size of your pan, so you can see now I'm close to the edges here, then I'll go ahead and place my dough right in the bottom, and then I'll just use my fingertips to stretch it to the edges. Beautiful. Once we have our dough prepped, we just want to make sure that it's all the way up to the edges here. And we're gonna start adding our toppings. So we're gonna start with our chimichurri sauce. We're gonna use about 1/4 of a pouch, and then we're gonna add a little bit more at the end of cooking. I like to just give it a little shake. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And it's okay if you don't get it all on the squeeze because we're gonna spread it around with a spatula. Nice even sauce across our dough. Gorgeous. All right. And then you can absolutely slice the cheese if you'd like. I love hand-torn mozzarella. One of the beautiful things about mozzarella cheese is that it's actually stretched similarly to dough, and that's how you get the shape, and it's also how you get those textures and those shreds. So rather than slicing it, I love to just tear it by hand, and it also mimics the shape of the mushroom. So when you take a bite and you slice it, you get a little bit of mushroom and cheese in each bite. So I'm just gonna hand tear it and start placing it on my pizza. I want to make sure that I am leaving some of the dough exposed so that it cooks evenly and so that I have room for my other toppings. If you're making pizza at home for the first time, one thing that I love to tell people is, don't weigh your dough down. One of the things that's beautiful about pizza dough is that it's leavened with yeast, and so it has air and all of this activity, and as you bake it, it really puffs up. But if you put too much over top, you won't get that gorgeous, like, fluffy crust. So don't weigh it down, don't overdo it. Less is more when it comes to pizza. So nice even cheese. You want to make sure you still get some in each bite. So filling in a few of these little gaps here. And next we're going to add our mushrooms. So I just quickly sauteed these in a little bit of olive oil with salt, because if I put raw mushrooms straight on my pizza, what's gonna happen is that water content from the mushrooms is gonna leak out as it bakes and make that pizza really heavy and wet. So cook out those mushrooms just quickly in a hot pan with a little bit of olive oil until they start to wilt and shrink a little bit. And that way they're already pre-cooked when you put them on the pizza, and when you bake it, they're gonna get crispy and delicious and super flavorful, and it'll really concentrate that umami savoriness that the mushrooms are bringing to the table. This is looking gorge. Okay, so we've got nice even mushrooms here. And if you have some left over, these are perfect to throw into a frittata, into some sheet pan eggs, wrap it in tortilla and eat it as tacos. Don't worry if you have leftover veg, you can always use those for other recipes. Once you have the mushrooms and the mozzarella and the chimi on the pizza dough, we're gonna par bake it for about 10 minutes. Then we'll take it out, we'll crack some eggs on top, which is what makes it that breakfasty pizza that we're looking for, and then we'll bake the eggs again. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this in the oven and get it sizzling. So we've par baked our pizza. You can see I've got a little bit of browning along the edges. It's sizzling, the cheese is melting, but it's not fully cooked. That's exactly where we want to be because our eggs are going to take another 7 or so minutes to cook. And we want to make sure that the pizza dough is also fully cooked once we pull it out of the oven. So we're going to take the back of a spoon and we're just going to make a few divots in the dough for our eggs to land. So I'm just gonna push down. You can see I'm kind of making a little swoop where that egg should be. And we're gonna do 4 eggs total. So we're gonna do 4 little swoops. And my dough should still be soft enough that I can push it around a little bit. And all that juice is delicious. It's actually gonna help steam and cook our eggs through. So if you feel like it's a little juicy, don't worry about that. And when we crack our eggs, if I were cracking into a bowl, I would just crack into the bowl and go, but I don't want to get any eggshell in my pizza, right? So I'm actually just going to crack this egg into a bowl, make sure there's no shell, and then I'll pour it into my divot, just so that we're not getting any crunchy eggshells in our delicious, rich pizza. So crack, and then right into the divot. If you have a little egg white spill over, that's totally fine. It's gonna look like the mozzarella and it's gonna be a really yummy texture, and some of those egg whites will actually get a little bit crispy as this bakes. Oh yeah. Last one. So our last step before we go into the oven is just a little dash of red pepper flakes right over our eggs, which are just gonna add a little bit of balance to all that richness. The heat is really gonna cut through and make it nice and spicy. All right, so here we have our herby chimichurri breakfast pizza. It looks delicious. I can hear this like sizzling in the dough, which tells me that it's gonna be super crispy on the bottom. The mushrooms like really shrunk down and kind of concentrated all of that flavor. I love that we have a little bit of a runny yolk situation. So when we slice into this, it's gonna just be so, so luscious. We've got our mozzarella melted underneath those eggs and that little flourish of chili flakes just to give an extra pop of flavor because we have a lot of rich flavors going on. We want something spicy to kind of cut through that. If you wanted an extra herby kick, feel free to drizzle a little bit more chimichurri over top before you slice it and enjoy. Let's eat. If you enjoyed this recipe, make sure to like this video and subscribe for all of our future recipes. For the full recipe and a textable shopping list, click the link below, and thanks for watching. Cook happy.